All right, folks, welcome back to a special episode of the McKinney Podcast. And we are here with a guest who, for a lot of you, doesn't need any introduction at all. He's been in the public eye for a long time. He is former and potentially again state representative, Mr. Frederick Frazier.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This is great. I love the room. I love the setup. I'm a big fan. It's so great to be here, and I'm glad we don't have the weather we had yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't have to come in a canoe.
Yes. For those who are wondering, it's now November 21st, and yesterday I thought we were going to have like the cold front come in, but it was just the rain.
Yeah.
And around 5 o'clock drive time yesterday, all of a sudden it became a toad strangler.
Yeah.
That, everywhere you're going, ankles deep in water. And so today we're mid 70s, and it's a beautiful day in McKinney, Texas.
Frazier, I got to say, I don't know which title to use with you because you've had several in your career. You have been with Dallas Police Department in various roles.
Mm-hmm.
You were city councilman of the city of McKinney,
Yes, sir.
where we are right now. And then you were, state representative.
Yes, sir.
And now you are a political operative, advocate, professional lobbyist, whatever you want to call it, on behalf of law enforcement.
Not lobbyist. So that's the one thing I'm not.
Okay.
And so it's a consultant for law enforcement. That's what we started that 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
And it's been a great career move. Making sure, there's angles for advocating for law enforcement, and there's the clients that I do have, they're in that space. And so they just need somebody to get them over into other spaces to how they navigate, whether it's from ballistic vests to videos to, when I say videos, video cams, the body cam work, virtual reality. That's a big thing that's out right now. I got a good company that I'm doing some work for there, getting them in some spots. And then I do government affairs work for another law enforcement group, but it's all retirees. And so it's a great transition,
Let's start back at the beginning of your professional life, and feel free to go into childhood or whatever else you want. Yeah. Fred's favorite question, of course, is
when your feet first touched the earth. Where was that?
In San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
All right.
Good old San Antonio. And so I grew up there, went to high school there, went to college there, met my beautiful wife Tracy there. I know she's going to see this. She's going to love that. She just got a shout out.
Hi, Tracy.
Yeah, and we were 18 and 19, and so got hired on with the Dallas Police Department at 21. Went over to the Dallas Police Department, and we moved up here. We really thought this was going to be a place where we would go for a while and then end back up in San Antonio. But we fell in love with this area, and it's hard not to, right? When you get to North Texas, great weather, great people, atmosphere is awesome. San Antonio's got everything of those things as well. But North Texas has something different. And I've been here now in North Texas longer than I ever was in San Antonio. And so we've made a great career move. Tracy's worked for the same company for 29 years. And she's doing very well there. And I went to law enforcement and stayed there about the same and retired. And then when I was working there in the U.S. Marshal Service at the same time. So I was on the task force for them as a special deputy marshal. And so my day-to-day work there was, chasing fugitives, door kicking, going into homes that, the bad guy's in to get them out, or bad person, It was a great career, love it. But San Antonio is my hometown. Still an avid Spurs fan. Sorry, Mavs guys, but I do like the Mavs now. I used to not, but Nowitzki, when he came on, I thought that was a great transition for that team.
Yes. How can you not like Dirk?
You can't. It's impossible, and it was impossible to not like Luka. And it was a really bonehead trade, and they've really gone, but they've got it, a flag now, and he's looks like he's going to be the guy for some time. But it would have been awesome to see those two together, even though if they couldn't, probably wouldn't have got there if they would have kept Luka. So it's a weird deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun for you Spurs fans down there, having a once in a generation freak athlete.
Oh yeah.
7'6" or whatever he is, Mr. Wembanyama.
Yeah.
I mean, every sports fan enjoys someone who's just completely dominant in what they do.
Yeah, those are game changer guys, right? The God touched them, and he's one of those. Tim Duncan was like that, is the same way. So was the Admiral, and so I was there at the first championship game, and I'm going to tell you, I cried. As a Spurs fan, seeing that, like, you're like, holy cow, they're finally here.
Yeah.
And remember, Spike Lee was sitting in front of us, and it was just a great atmosphere there in San Antonio.
That was 99,
99,
right?
the shortened year, the asterisk year. And
and then 03, 05, 07.
Yeah, we had a really great run. And when you have a person like Tim Duncan on that team who can make a shot from almost anywhere and just was a phenomenal, folks don't know, he was not a basketball player. He was a swimmer. He was an Olympic swimmer. And so he had transitioned and then went to Wake Forest and then just jumped out and went to the NBA. And he just had crazy skills that other folks just don't have. But it was awesome to watch those teams.
So you go through your law enforcement career. You spend 20 something, almost 30 years in law enforcement. At a certain point, you realize I can't do this forever.
Yes.
How did you decide what to do next? And secondly, from that, of course, the question everybody wants to know, how in the world did you end up in McKinney?
We ended up in McKinney. We were in Plano first. We bought a home there. Okay, for folks that don't know, if you were looking for an old home and you want to renovate it, don't do it. We bought a 1972 home that was in 1972 shape.
Mm-hmm.
And
what year was this when you bought it?
2000. And and it was.
So the only thing that changed in that time, those 20 years, was just ownership, right?
Oh my gosh! And the same. I bought it from the owners, and man, we near killed ourselves getting this house, renovating it for all those years, and then we sold it, built a home here in McKinney, and we've loved it. And so we're avid golfers. Tracy and I both are, all of our kids. So we wanted to be by a golf course and enough where we could be there and do the things that we love to do outside.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing with the years that you moved in, it was Stonebridge, not El Dorado, right?
No, it was El Dorado. We're in El Dorado Country Club area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But there was one area.
On the inside of that circle or the outside of it?
The outside of it.
Okay.
The north of it is the only area there that had new home building going in. And so we ended up building a home there. And then the recession hit, because that was 2008. So we were four homes there for about 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And then obviously it all caught up, and it's been great. The great part about that, it taught me a lot. When I moved here, I was already doing leadership stuff with Plano. But when I transitioned here, I wanted to get more involved with our communities and the aspect of understanding what drives McKinney. And that was the one thing that folks talked about all the time is the hometown feel. Because we looked at Frisco, and we were this close. We had put money on a house and had it reserved, and then we found this spot, and we had friends that were building in there. We're like, okay, this is more like home. And in Valley Creek, which is right down, it's one of the best elementary schools in McKinney, it really had that appeal. And our daughter was about to start kinder, and we're like, this is home. And so we built in there. And at that same time, the whole country was in a recession, massive recession. And the one thing that, when the home building stopped, kind of like the water just turned off, so did projects for McKinney, because the city didn't have any money. So I got involved with the city stuff. Geraldine Keever was our councilwoman at the time, still a dear friend. So I got with her. We started working on projects together. Bonning Week Park developed out of that, and the trail systems out of that. And the trails that are cut in our neighborhood, I hand cut them. And that's when I got involved with the parks, because the parks like, we don't have the manpower or the people. If you could help us out. And I said, if you can come mark these trees, the ones not to cut, I said, I'll have the guys out here this weekend. And so all the dads got together and we carved those trails out. And they were just dirt bike trails for most people. And then they finally become concrete trails. And that's the trailhead that folks walk on to this day that we hand cut right there. And so it's pretty awesome to watch that piece of, history that's behind us. Because there are thousands of people use it a year, and it's just absolutely
Talk
gorgeous.
about leaving your mark on the city, man. You're literally leaving your physical mark.
Yeah. And then at that time, Geraldine had noticed that there was a passion that I wanted to do things to help out here, and so asked me to apply for a leadership McKinney. I did, and I did it for a year, and I had a great time. Developed great friendships. And then that brought up the city council opening. Tracy Rath had gone through some health issues, and she was, she's a dear friend as well, and she wanted to just serve her term and be done. And the police and fire guys were like, man, this guy does a ton of stuff for public safety. He's at the Capitol working. He's doing the government affairs for them. He's doing the stuff in Dallas. He's working on the contracts. He knows those avenues. He's doing stuff for FOP nationally. That time, barely, but they recognized that it ought to be a great placement for them, or a great champion for them. And they were struggling at that time. They had two associations at McKinney PD. They had an FOP, and then they had a regular one. One was bigger than the other. And at that time, I was going around the state merging police associations that were battling with each other because they'd battle over contracts. And it was like, if you just have one association and fold them in together and everybody be happy, it's a lot easier to negotiate. Yeah. And so we got Irving and all these other ones done, got McKinney's done. There was a great transition to get them in the FOP, because the FOP is the largest association in the country. It's 365,000 members, police officers. And I serve on the board for them right now. And I just got appointed 2 days ago to the National Legislative Law Enforcement Board for the FOP National. So I'll be back and forth to DC on some issues and going for all legislative issues. I served on that before, but then I said I need to take some of these things a step back a little bit. And I didn't realize, well, one, being a full-time officer was just a lot, and then being a legislator was a lot. So, and that just pulls you in all these different ways. And so one was to come, take some of these things off of me. And now that I don't have that full time and I've got more time, I want to go back and do those things I love and make sure that I'm advocating for law enforcement across this country.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
That was like a Cliff Notes history lesson.
Okay, well, folks, it's been a great episode. And
yeah.
Okay, so how does that morph into deciding to go after state office? Because now, what year did you come on to council? Because did
19.
you run or were you appointed?
No, I ran.
Okay, you ran in 19.
I had a tough race. I had 3 opponents. We won outright, and it was a tough race. At that time it was the most expensive race in the city's history at that point. Now those are gone, right? You've seen Bill Cox and the Sanford race, and you saw how much money was spent there, and in Ernest Lynch's race, that was a very expensive race. So campaigns have stepped it up, since then. You used to be able to spend, about $18,000 to get. That's what Tracy Rath had spent for her race to get to win. We ended up spending $66,000 on that race. People were freaking out. Well, now that number is blown out of the water. Yeah. So the transition was what was happening there on council is that these spots, these state legislative spots, they don't open up very often. And when they do, they're here's and there's, right? They're spot. And I'd been watching that spot because I just felt we needed somebody that were more boots on the ground. And then what I mean by that, somebody that doesn't mind getting dirty, picking up the trash in the median, going out there and cooking hot dogs for the schools, someone helping somebody that's pulled over that their car's not working. I've done all those things. I do them constantly. And, those aren't the things you put on Facebook or Twitter or any of your stuff, I guess X now. But those are the things that build a community and a person that wants to do this job. And that's one thing I always was like, why do we not see a legislative person in the community as much? We know who they are, but we don't see them serving on certain things. And so I wanted to take that passion and put it to the state house and try to be everywhere. I know it's impossible to do that, but you can at least do as much as possible to show the community what you actually can do. And so when Scott Sanford decided not to run, we looked at that really hard because I got the call that Sunday and I said, well, he's not going to go. Well, we signed up immediately, and that meant I had to relinquish my position on city council until they, backfilled it. And Patrick Cloutier took that and he's done a great job. But but that transition was what I knew was going to be a fight. There was always going to be people jumping in it. And I already knew the one gentleman that was in there, Jim Herblin, and him and I, we've talked twice today. He's a good friend. And obviously the other person, not a friend at all, that I beat in that race. And so we loved that seat. And I think I showed everybody when we got to the State House that you can be somebody in the community and be on the State House. and do all the other things you said. You can be a father, you can do the volunteer, you can be all those things at once. But the one thing you have to do is serve the state. And we had the longest sessions in history, state history, with the 5 sessions that time, my term, because we were trying to get the tax bill passed, and that was the big bucket item. And then it was a big passion for me because I wanted to see that tax bill passed because we had the money sitting in the coffers to give back to give back to homeowners. They needed that money. They still need that money. And when I get back in office this time, that's going to be my number one priority is getting a tax bill passed again, because when we have that surplus that's just sitting there, it's got to go back to the people that are paying into it, and it's their money. It's our money. And so we've got to figure out how to continue to do that so we can lead the nation and showing the nation of how we can do it better in Texas than anywhere else. So that's one of the items I want to work on. There's many more.
Man, I'm on the fly trying to think of which questions I want to use our short amount of time and ask, because God, there's like 6 different ways we could take this episode.
Well, I want to know. Okay,
Fred, you're less politically inclined.
I'm less politically inclined, and I like to deep dive on certain things. So when you ran your campaign for reelection, all right, and you're pressing forward in that, obviously there are a lot of things that go on in there, and a lot of people said that was probably one of the most divisive races ever.
Oh, dirty
in the history of McKinney.
Yeah.
But that election didn't go in your favor.
Yep.
And so, what message do you have for the people who didn't vote for you? Or a lot of people, I talked to a lot of people, and they're like, I don't really even know. And I believe a lot of people didn't turn up. But
Yes.
What do you have to say to the people that either voted for your opponent or did not vote for you?
Yeah.
What do you have to say to them?
That's a great question. It's fair. You got to look at the two of us side by side. And you're going to see one of them, my opponent say, well, I've got a 92 rating. You voted no 92% of the time. You didn't pass anything. Oh, you passed a plumbing bill. That's great. Congratulations. You're also the biggest plumber in North Texas. So, and then you go over and look at what I passed and everything. We got everything done except for the money for the teachers. That was the only thing we didn't get done in education. But of all those bills that I passed, whether it was for police, fire, for our widows, for our math and science bill that I passed, for the street racing, you go through all those bills and you look at it, and there's a collective body of work, right? Because when you pass things, your grade goes down because it's an expense. It's going to be coming. That's money that's coming out to pay for those things. But there are also things that you need. I mean, I think both of you love to live here because it's safe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you like the home values. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
You like when you turn your water on and it works.
Yep.
You like to drive on those streets. Yep. Well, all those things have to get passed. And when you vote against a budget like my opponent, well, that's where the money comes from. So I don't understand that line of thinking. And I know it's like, well, I'm so much more Republican than you. Well, you just voted no on everything. It's easy to be that person. That's the easiest thing to do. It's hard to sit there and look through the system and say, it's a really good bill, but this is going to hurt my rating. I never cared about that. I still don't care about that. And I'm going to be voting for great bills to get our stuff done here because we need it. We need bigger roads. We need better roads. We need services like our police and fire. We need to be able to turn that water on. And the water is going to be a huge issue for the future for the state. If you're not looking at over there in Toledo Bend and the area where they have 300 years of water sitting underneath of them and trying to figure out how to pull it this way and to get it to West Texas, because if you're west of 35 right now, you're dry. And what that means is you're in a drought, and they're not getting any water. They haven't been getting water. We got lakes in Texas that are 3% full. So what do you think those lakes used to do? Well, they used to feed the water to those communities. And if they're not feeding water to those communities, that means they're bringing water they need water from somewhere else. So that's going to be a huge tackling, something to tackle when you get back there. And again, you go back to property taxes, and we still got to figure out how to make sure that our education is working in the state. Every one of those students, those 5.3 million students that we have in Texas, one of the largest school systems in the state, and we've got 485 or whatever thousand teachers. Think about that having it as a company, right? It's like an IBM or a Walmart or something like that when you go to one of the biggest companies in the world. And then you've got, in that whole pension system, you got over 700,000 people in it. That's another feeder, right? That's economically moving us up and down. And you got 31 million people here. Well, most of the people that moved in our area we're at, what did they move here for? Schools. Yeah. They wanted their children to go to good schools, and they wanted to have great teachers, and they wanted them to be safe. And if you're not voting on those things to do all that, you're in the wrong position. And I'm that person that does that. And I take those hits. And I'm not going to say that 38 is a great record. I'm going to say it is absolutely extraordinary, because that is somebody that actually got something done versus somebody that didn't do anything and became a piece of furniture, just like anything else sitting in that building. And so that's what we have to accomplish here. And so when folks say to me, it's like, ask me what I can do for you and what do you want from me? And I ask that question all the time, because I'm going to be frank with them. I'm going to be like, it's tough. When I had a conversation with a gentleman the other day over what's happening with the schools right now with the 3 closing. Well, we don't have the population for them. And I know that one school, they were like one school better than the other. And it's going to be because their hearts are being torn from them right now. And it hurts, because I was in that meeting. I was sitting up there and I was watching the passion of those families. And I felt it. I felt horrible for them. And I know that it's taking a child to another school when the child's flourishing is going to be tough for that child. That's development years. And I have 3 children myself. Tracy and I are blessed with 3, and we've all gone through public schools here. So we know how valuable that is. So trying to make sure that we're working together is something great, because most legislators will not work with the school boards. Most legislators will not work with anybody. They'll just sideline it because they say, well, if I get involved with them, people will think I'm some kind of rhino or a Democrat. Really? You're supposed to be looking out for education and the well-being for everybody in the city.
Yeah.
And every city that you represent, not just the state, but the district that you actually represent, that is your district, and you're supposed to be doing your job for it.
Well, what's in the title of the role? Representative.
Yeah, it's easy.
You are literally a vehicle of a constitutional republic. Mm-hmm. You are supposed to go to Austin and represent the will of the people from your district.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole job. That's the entire job.
It's pretty simple when you just read it, right? And you just see it. I'd been working at that Capitol doing government affairs work for years, and you knew the legislators that just didn't do anything, right? But they got elected every year or every 2 years. And then you knew the workhorses, right? You could see them working and working. They carry all the bills. Some of these guys, James Frank, they would carry 100 bills, right? You'd be like, oh, you carry that many bills? Well, because they can get them done. They can get a large percentage of them over the finish line, so people believe in them. And so as we were building our team, and trust me, the team we had, not one of them had ever been to the Capitol before. That's kind of crazy, right? You put a chief of staff there that's from Florida, and then you put a guy that just got out of college from Texas, and then a girl that's in college from Texas, and you put them all in the same room, and you say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And they're like, how do we do it? And I'm like, I'm going to show you. And so building that team and then passing more bills than any freshman and getting those things, more stuff started coming our way, because they're like, man, this guy can carry it. This guy knows the avenues. It's just like the math and science bill. When I passed it, I was done. That bill was done. I was like, we're not going to finish this bill. It's going to get stuck. It's way back in the backlog. It's not going to come in time. We're going to hit midnight and we're going to be done. I had to go find something to attach it to. I had to go find it and put it on there. And we got it done within minutes. But those are avenues you have to look at to say, what language will it fit to this one to make it fit? And that's part of this job, is like not giving up on, even though you're like, well, we should just give up on it. It's too much work. We'll just get it next time. Well, maybe there won't be a next time. Maybe there won't be a person like me there to do it, to carry that water for them. But that bill is now a state law, and it is working for the math and science teachers for the whole state of Texas. And what it was a tuition reimbursement bill. And I took the T1 off of it, so they didn't have to go to a school that was out of their district, that actually we could homegrown our students right here that become teachers, and they could just come back here and be math and science teachers, and they can get their tuition reimbursed from going to college.
Without having to move to a Title I district, which for those not familiar is typically in economically or educationally disadvantaged parts of the state, lower population, rural, bad part of Dallas, Houston, whatever.
Yeah.
McKinney needs good teachers too. We can't.
That's right.
We can't be sending all of our good teachers to underperforming districts.
What I found out when I did the research on it, and I had been looking at it for years, and the reason I had been looking at it, because every time I saw when a district would put out, help wanted, basically, that where they need, what do they have? Disabilities or special needs, and then they have the math and science, right? Those are the two things that are always sitting there. And you're like, well, how do you fix that? I mean, why aren't we, where are all these teachers at? Well, then I went to look at that. There was already a reimbursement program in set, but only for T1 schools. And it had a 3.8 GPA. And then you just serve all these certain years, all these crazy parameters. And I was like, well, let's just take the restrictor plate off this and let's open it up. We'll lower that average GPA. Well, not much, but we moved it down to an average, where you're still in like the 3.5 range for a student graduating college. That's great. Better than I was. and then you go look at that, and then you move that T1. And I thought for sure that the Democrats were going to just absolutely crucify me for doing that. And I went and met with all of them, and I said, look, I'm trying to grow teachers here in McKinney and Prosper and Salina and Anna and Melissa in my district. I'm trying to grow teachers. Frisco, we need these teachers. I said, if we take this off, our kids that come back and want to do this, they can stay in our hometowns and teach and make it. They can't afford a house, but they can still live with their parents. I don't know about you, but I got one that's still staying there, and she graduated, and I don't care how long she stays. Well, I'm Peyton. You need to move.
At some point.
Yeah, at some point. You're lucky you're in Spain. But you've got to look at things like that. What makes me, the one thing when I looked at it, there was 15 teachers in the entire program, and they had like a $20 million bank sitting there. And
Wow.
I'm like, well, so then I started calling around asking, why is this not working? They're like, there's too many parameters on it. Then they get in it and they fall out of it because they don't complete the term. And I'm like, what a waste. I said, and now we've got thousands in it. And so you're going into people that applied for it because they want to go back to where they want to teach, where they grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would think a teacher would be so great going to the school where she started, or him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It wouldn't be going back to your high school. I'd be like, man, I remember walking these halls with my Bugle Boy jean or Bugle Boys and my whatever you wore, and at those times, and now you're there teaching or coaching or whatever you're doing, and you're setting an example. I came from here.
Yeah.
So it was a very fun bill to work on and great to get accomplished.
Before we move on from education, I want to double click on this for a second, because I don't think there was a single issue that was more talked about, hotly contested, emotionally charged than the whole voucher program,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're Governor Abbott's school choice, whatever spin you want to put on it. There's no way around it. I think vouchers are a terrible idea. I think they are diverting funding away from schools that are already having funding challenges. They're making a bad problem worse. I don't know where you stand on the vouchers thing. I understand choice is an important thing, but until we fix public education and find more creative ways to make sure that there's not massive budget shortfalls, where here in McKinney ISD, more than 100 aides got fired and lost their position because there just wasn't funding for them. There's no money.
There's no money.
And then in the same breath that we're getting rid of more than 100 aides, the governor thinks it's a great idea to approve this voucher thing. And I may be walking into a buzzsaw here because I don't know what your position is.
Yeah.
How do we fix public education funding in Texas? Because even now as we record this, Governor Abbott, in trying to throw red meat to his far off base, it tries to say, oh, let's just get rid of property taxes entirely. And it's like, Mr. Governor, sir, respectfully, the schools are funded with property taxes. We already have a massive funding problem, and you want to propose we get rid of property taxes entirely? Yeah. Mr. Governor, how's it going to work? How are the schools going to have their budget?
I would love to know how that's going to work.
The math doesn't math, as they say.
I have looked at that. I mean, the moment he put it out, I looked at it and I was like, and I circled it and I sent it to a bunch of educators. And
he can't be serious.
I said, how do you do this? And I've sent it to everybody that I know. I'm like, I would love to know. And I don't know if it's more of a talking point or a propose. You've got folks like Don Huffines that's running for comptroller that constantly said, "We get rid of this property tax." Okay, then what are you gonna feed all their other stuff with? Where are you gonna go there? I understand there's a way to curve them, but where are you gonna get the money?
The moment we start talking about a state income tax, everyone's got to lose their minds.
Yeah, and you have a lot of folks that moved here from California that constantly bring that up, right? Yeah. And I'm like, no, we're not going to a state income tax. That's not going to work for our state. It's not working in the other states where you see you love to hear people say, "Well, I moved to Texas because the taxes are better, the roads are better, the safer, all those other things. Schools are better, blah, blah, blah.
So what is it? We moved the sales tax from 8.25% to 15%.
Yeah.
Like what? How are we going to do that?
Yeah, you're already going in the north direction there, right?
Yeah.
And then you already got your like my opponents are like, well, let's just tax something else. And I'm like,
what are you going to tax?
I said, what are you going to tax? I would love to know. What is your consumption tax?
Listen, all I got to do is like when I open my toll tag bill, like I think
don't even get me started on NCTA, man. That's a different subject.
I think they should like name sections of 121 after me because that thing is amazing.
Yeah,
how much I see go
when
right
they
to there.
passed those laws. It was supposed to be the tolls are in place until there's a sufficient fund amount to pay for the maintenance and upkeep of the roads, and the bonds are paid off.
Yeah,
and then the tolls will go away. And you see how that went.
Right. Yeah, that was
a lie.
That was a. That sounded great, right? It's kind of like the getting rid of property tax. Sounds great, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because you have no alternatives.
And I'll touch back on the school choice deal. And I know that's a hot topic, and I know professors are like, stay away from that, stay away. And I'm like, well, you can, right? You've got to, if you're going to take this job, you got to take everything head on.
Yeah.
And you can't be in the back of the room going, well, let them do all that, or I'll get together with my people. Well, who are your people? You're the one that was voted to do this.
Yeah.
So, when we crafted the first bill in the 88, that bill was, as much as advocates against school choice did not like it, that was a better bill than the one that just passed, because that was better for education. It was better for the crafting of getting the special need. All the things that we wanted in that bill were in it. And it was crafted by a person whose wife is in the education industry. And so you had Buckley doing it, and he did it this last one. But that was a very well thought out bill. And you weren't going to see, that much money that went into this last bill, and you weren't going to see the divisiveness of what this has brought.
Yeah,
and that's what and I have police officers and firemen constantly talking about this. They're very upset with it, because police and fire marry a lot of teachers, and teachers are very upset. But you also have to look at, and this is the one thing I had to learn on the education forefront, was you had to look at those families that have a child that is in a special class, that's going to special school, and that's expensive. And this voucher thing will help them. It will at least curve, a little bit of that cost. You're not going to see that really work a lot for the private schools, because they're just not going to fit it, especially the way this is crafted, the way it's been crafted. It's mostly for, the lower economic kids that can't get in there, or they just don't have the money, and this is a plant for it. It's time is going to tell, and my part on that was to make sure that we're taking care of those kids that could not get the special needs that they severely needed. And I know that you're going to have advocates on here that will listen to it from the school said, well, we have it at our school. You do. But you also have frustrated parents that they need something more, and that's where that should come in. I'd love to see how it's going to work, right? I'm not one of those persons that's like, oh, we got to have the competition, we got to be doing this, we got to be building, we got to go to like Florida. I want to see what Texas can build, and I want to see Texas try to build something right. Again, like I said earlier, I want to see Texas do something different than any other state and try to craft something that it fits all of our needs. But public education has to be funded. The state has a responsibility there. That is our biggest employment group, right? I don't care where you're going to work at. You're going to come. A giant pot of you're going to come out of a public school, and especially our area. We have great public schools. We have unbelievable teachers, and we have great administrators that are doing great work. That has to be on the forefront every time you're thinking about what you're going to do in education. Are they doing a good job? And I know there's always going to be things in the news. You're going to go, oh man, what is going on there? What is going on over there? The bad cycle. I know it's horrible. Companies have bad employees. Things are going to happen there. It's just horrible that it happens in our school more than we like.
I hesitate to say something quite as definitive. I can't let the conversation go without making just the acknowledgement, the optics of the whole thing. I don't know if they could be any worse for Governor Abbott. You got two sizable donations that between the two of them add up to $10 million to your campaign from a billionaire whose most of his money is tied up in private education.
Yeah.
Like, Governor Abbott, whether or not this was completely corrupt
Yeah.
and a political, like, switcheroo. Oh, hey, cool. Thanks for the $10 million. Sure, I'll push private school vouchers for you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's actually what happened, but man, it sure doesn't smell right.
Yeah, but you'll look at those donations that come in. I mean, he's at such a high level. Those donations are going to come in from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's you got to get in there and you got to sit there and you have to make hard choices. But the one choice is you got to make sure you're making the choice for your district.
Yeah.
And if your district wants something, you better be working your butt off for it, and not just for the little party that's pushing you behind. You got to work for everybody, because when you get on that road or you call 911, all those things matter, and you're going to be with all those other people in that district. And so you better be working your tail off for that district, because that's where the rubber meets the road right there.
You're right.
All right. Okay. So
Fred.
Great segue. Speaking of optics, in your last campaign,
Yep.
there were some, let's say, bad optics thrown at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that this is still an ongoing case, but here's your chance. Set the record straight for our audience, for everyone that tunes in, that, there were some things said, and, we're not going to get into naming names and pointing fingers, but, a lot of people will say, well, isn't he that guy? And I'm like, well,
Well, where'd you
get your news from?
Yeah.
And it's not just said, it's, accusations of actual behavior, of actions taken.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm ignorant of some of the details there.
Yeah.
What's the deal with the sign, man?
Oh my gosh.
You got accused of impersonating an officer of something, removing a political campaign sign, and then it just blew up there.
It blew up like crazy.
What happened?
And so I since we do have a lawsuit going, I'm gonna be very,
choose the words however you want.
I'm gonna be.
Good. You can speak in general terms.
I will tell you, the sign that's down here that was down here, that I'm on video doing it, and I said I was going to move it anyway because it was blocking the road over here at Hardin and El Dorado. I moved it. I didn't do anything with it. I moved it. So the reason why was because the kids were driving or riding their bikes on El Dorado, going eastbound, and then you had kids coming this way, southbound. A lot of them go to the Sonic across over there, across from the Tom Thumb. That sign had a complete blockage from those kids to see each other. And those kids ran out in the road. And I was coming back from running warrants one day, and I said, went in there, pulled in. I'm like, well, how can you put something there to block the visual path that's happening there? Oh, he put it up. I took it down the next day. Took it down, didn't care. Didn't think anything of it. Didn't do anything with it. And that went totally haywire. And, then that became another issue and another issue and another issue. And it blew up. And like I said, I'm going to be very careful of some of the things because of the lawsuit. And then that became where the signs were put up against me. And the craziest thing on that was they were put up at my church. So you had to see when you come in and out on purpose, where our families all come out. I thought that was really disgusting, but they were disgusting people that were doing it. And then they put them at both entrances of my kids' schools, which are not in the district. And I thought that was really disgusting. And so when that campaign was over, we filed a lawsuit on an individual that was doing it. And he's appealed it 3 times. He's lost all 3 times. He's also the same guy that filed the one for the airport, and he's lost that one.
How did that work exactly?
What do you mean?
No, how did that appeal go? Telling TxDOT that they don't know how to do an environmental assessment.
Yeah, that when I read that, I was, and it's always funny. He has a donate button for everything. Is that kind of weird? There's always a donate button. Where does that actually really go? But it felt really great when when the lawsuit went to court on the first time, and the judge ruled in our favor, and also ruled in our favor for legal fees. And then he appealed it, and then obviously he lost that, and that was an appeals court, and then he appealed it again, and he's lost that. And so I feel like we're in a great spot. I'm not, I don't like lawsuits. I actually hate them, but at some point you have to stand up for yourself. You have to take your name it was a very dirty race. And I had told a story last night at our kickoff. And in 2013, and I'm just going to, because this story kind of leads up to something you'll hear. In 2013, on November 22nd was the 50th year for the JFK assassination. And they were doing this outdoor ceremony, and we were or a police association was hosting it, and we had all these, everyone coming in for this event. It didn't gravitate to how big this event was. And it was just a massive rainstorm like last night. It couldn't have been more identical. And at the last second, the person giving the speech said he couldn't do it. He was stage fright. And he's like, hey, can you take on the speech? And I'm like, what? And I said, there's cameras from everywhere, from all over the world here for this event. Not only are the cameras, but the widow of J.D. Tippett's in the audience. He was Lee Harvey Oswald killed, the police officer he killed. And also Jack Lavelle, who was handcuffed to Lee Harvey Oswald when Oswald was killed by Jack Ruby. And so you had all these people in this room. I just go out to my truck and I write this speech. And I gave that speech. It was very passionate.
Wait, you wrote the speech in your truck?
Yeah, because
before the event.
Right before the event.
Are you? And just Frederick, just so I'm clear, are you a professional speechwriter by chance?
No, but I've given a lot over the years.
What a wild story, man!
And so
please carry on. What?
So I give this, and my wife's there, and everyone's there, and I am just a nervous wreck, right? I'm an absolute nervous wreck, and I'm going through history, right? And, and I'm not even born then, right? So I'm going through something that I'm not even born in. I just remember folks talking about it, but it is a president killed here, and it was a horrible day in our history, a horrible day, black eye on our country. But where I'm going with this is people do crazy things in campaigns and politics, and they tried to take me out. Right, with those signs, and they tried to bury me. Never, he'll never come back from this. Well, I'm back, and I'm running, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to tell you that hurt me, and it hurt my family, but I'm tougher than that, and I told my children that because they were like, how can they do this? How can they do this? And I said, well, they're disgusting people. And I said, and politics makes people crazy.
Yep.
And they'll do anything.
Politics makes people crazy.
And they'll do anything to win. No matter what they say and do about me, they'll do anything to win. Because just like I want to debate my opponent every day. I would love for you guys to host a debate. That would be awesome. And I want the public to see the difference. Yeah. I want them to see what they had and what they're going to have and what they have right now.
I promise you right now, and Fred, I'm not gonna hesitate in saying, yeah, Fred's down for it.
I'm down for it.
Yeah. Well, for the only time this episode, we'll name names. Miss Richardson, you are cordially invited to attend a mutually agreed upon time and date and location. We are happy to moderate, and we'll work with both your campaigns to make a wonderful event out of it. The only reason to do it is to make sure as many people as possible get FaceTime with their candidates so they can make a better informed decision on who they like better for the job. Yeah. That's the whole thing.
That's what debates are about. And that's what I want the public to see the difference. Yeah. And you can also set up a cage match for me and the other guy that have the lawsuit with.
Can I get in line with that?
Yeah. That'd be fun. Awesome. But all kidding aside, this job is so important. And you can almost go through the whole town and ask, who's your state representative? No one knows, right? And that's the difference I want to make. I want folks to know that guy, Frederick Frazier, that guy, that's our representative.
That's my guy.
That's my guy. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference of what I want to do with this job. I'm not doing it there's no fame in it, right? There's zero. There's no money in it. I mean, you lose. This is a loser. I mean, this is a loser money deal. And other things folks don't know, when I was your state representative, I didn't get paid for a year. So I had to take a leave of absence because the one thing they thought we could do was be a police officer and be a state representative. Well, you're taking two monies from two different buckets, and they're both tax money. They're both from the public. And so we had to take a leave of absence for that job. When I told Trace, I said, this is going to hurt. We're going to have 5 months of no pay. And she's like, what? This is not what I signed up for. And I'm like, I know, but we just get through this 5 months. Well, 5 months turned into 12 months.
Wow.
And so you want to talk about sacrifice. That was a massive sacrifice for our family. We figured it out. We cut back here and cut back there. But you got to think, somebody's willing to do that for you and to do that job, that thankless job, and the whole time you're spending money. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're renting your apartment, you're going back and forth all the time. You're spending money. I mean, everyone in here knows how when they travel or do anything, you're going to be spending money, and you just had to cut back on a lot of things. And so it's a sacrifice, but it's also a calling. And I've had people, I can't believe you want to do this. I said, it's not that I want to do it. I want you to want me to do it. I want to do this for you, and I want you to be with me doing it, because I want you to feel what this is. I want you to understand when something is passed, it's for you. It's going to affect you. It's going to help you. It's going to help your family. And that's what the difference is on this job. I mean, I did the same thing on city council. And I know that if you talk to anybody that I served with, an account said, the guy worked his tail off. He said, when he came to the office, whether he was in BDUs and SWAT gear, he was ready and prepared and had everything ready. I mean, if we were looking at doing a project, I went and looked at it, took videos, sent it to and I'd be like, hey, this is what I'm looking at over here. This is how if it was controversial, I made sure we met with the property owners and checked on everything. I'll give you a great example at Hardin in Virginia. That was supposed to be apartments. And I said, nope. I'm not putting apartments across from there and then there. That's going to be a very busy intersection with apartments going. And so across the street was supposed to be apartments. I said, you do that, you're just turning this place into apartment central right here in this corner. And when I moved here, that was a dirt road. Oh, actually, it was no road. It just was gravel. It just had the barriers up and Hardin ended. So I met with the owners of the property and brought them all in. Guess what? None of them were from here. One was from Maui. One was from Phoenix. I can't remember where the other two were from. And they were like, so how are we going to get this done? I said, well, we're not going to get this done. We're not going to get apartments done. I said, bring me a different deal. I said, let's talk about how we're going to get this up. Find something else to go there. So those are now adult living areas. And this was the one thing I found out when I started doing my homework. I went over to Frisco, our sister city, and checked on the senior living facilities they had there. Guess who was living there? McKinneyites, because there wasn't enough room here. There wasn't places for them like that here. And they wanted to be in McKinney, but there was just no room. You had to be on a waiting list of most of these places to get in. And some of them are not at that level. This is a very nice place right there, Watermere. And then you in Touchmore, same. They're both beautiful places. And I know several people that are living there from my church and they just love it. And they're like, thank you. Right? Because now we can see our kids. Or they can have their grandkids from whatever Walker or Valley Creek or Cockrell or any of these schools and come see them. And they're right here in McKinney, and they didn't have to move all the way across, the other side of Frisco or beyond. I love that project. And you know what? It made more money. It was more expensive. It was like double the what we were going to get on taxes versus we were going to get from apartments. And another thing, we don't have any traffic. Average age is 82. So you don't have the traffic. They have a van that goes back and forth. It's a senior place. It's an absolutely amazing to put the hands on something that you see every day and you drive by and go, I made that happen. And so those are things that you're supposed to do in those jobs, but you have to do your homework. And a lot of folks just go in and leave.
I'm going to ask the bridging the two worlds, if that's okay with you. And then, we can ask whatever question you've got in mind and then get you on your way, because we promised you an hour and we're at an hour.
That went by fast.
54 minutes of recording time, believe it or not. The two things that you've done in elected office, city council and state rep, and the interplay between those two roles, right now, especially in McKinney, in Texas, especially. We talk about water rights, we talk about emergency service districts, we talk about annexation with the ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, all the Swiss cheese north of 380 for those that don't know what an ETJ is. We can talk offline about it. It's rather complicated, unfortunately. Love him or hate him, Mr. Sanford took some pretty interesting positions on some of these topics. And a lot of people saw that he was more aligned with the state rather than the city when it comes to local rights, local governance determination. What's your take on how you can be an effective, arbitrator between the interest of the state and the interest of the city? Because in District 61, there's almost a dozen cities represented in District 61. And you can't obviously favor your hometown, McKinney.
Yeah.
If you do, just do it quietly so no one knows you're favoring McKinney. That's where we all laugh, right?
Yeah.
But how do you plan to be a good rep and represent the region, but also, the interest of the state as a whole?
Yeah.
Because Mr. Sanford, when he spent almost 12 years in office, definitely kind of steered towards the state's interest more so than local interest when it comes to water, when it comes to Senate Bill 6 that took away cities' ability to annex without voting, which that's probably never going to happen in most places. Building codes and trying to attack the city's ability to regulate building facade and things like that, where private developers can tell the city, I don't care, I'm going to do what I want. How do we address those in a way that is balancing the interest of both parties?
Great question. And when you cut your teeth on city council, you learn how to do the city business, and there's things that it just blows your mind how much comes across that desk, right? Whether it's the donut shop or the giant corporation that's going to come in, you kind of got to treat everything in the same manner, or the bills that you have to work with, the parameters for the state. And then you go over to the State House. Well, a lot of folks don't come from those two worlds. They just go straight to the State House, or however that happens, right? And so I didn't. I came from one to the other. And also I was doing a lot of labor work for law enforcement in the city of Dallas. I mean, a lot of labor work. And so you get to cut your teeth there as well. I always found that working together, we got a better product. And then I still think that to this day, working together, you get a better product. Because if the two worlds meet with each other constantly, and I had constant open door. I know Paul Grimes, I know Mayor Fuller, I know Bill Cox. Every single person that's on that council I know very, very well. And I know how the city operates. I also know most of the city folks that are in all the other city councils that are around the region. There's some great people. Now there's not some great people, but there's some great people on those boards trying to do the right thing. And we've got to constantly go. I'll give you a great example. Anna, remember when Anna was having the car accidents on the highway, right? That's a state problem, but it's also a city problem, right? Because the city has to respond to that. Well, I was looking at it, so I went and drove it. And I'm like, how is 2 accidents in a couple of weeks and fatalities right here on this deal? Well, I noticed that the where the construction started was way too far back, and it needed, or too far close to where it started, and it needed to slow people down way further back. So I called TxDOT, called the city, and I had a meeting with everybody. And they were like, this is the first time we've ever done this. Now think about that. Why? Why was it the first time?
That's concerning.
Mm-hmm.
That's very concerning.
What do you mean that's the first one? Come on.
I'm like, so what did we do? We moved it back a mile. Haven't had fatality since. But 5 people had to die there. 5 people died in that before that happened. That's a very tragic, going into the segue of this working together. But you have to have that. Why can't we go over there and sit down and talk about what we can do to make this better for both of us and make this stick? And that's one thing that doesn't happen. You'll have a no conversation from the state legislator to the city. I promise you that. I know that that's not happening. And I always thought, well, maybe they're talking a little bit. No, they're not talking at all. They just do it and stick it and you deal with it. Well, that's not how I work. I want to make sure that folks, we're doing the best thing and putting the best product out there. If you're not putting the best product out there for everybody and you're just sticking it to the city, well, I hope they stick it back to you and tell you where to go and unvote you. Because that's what's happening right now. We don't have somebody that wants to work with anybody and just doing whatever she wants. Now, everyone knows when I get back there, I'll be working with every single one of them and making sure that we're getting everything that we promised on the campaign and everything that they need done. Because there's things I don't even know they need right now, but I know most of them. And water's obviously very important. Property rights are very important. Our building codes we've got some really silly ones right now. They got passed. And it's funny, the one that just got passed for the I'm trying to think of the bill number. They got passed. The person that passed it owns sleazy apartments. And it's like, oh, well, he can just build more sleazy apartments across the state because he passed his own bill. And that's weird how that happens a lot and nobody takes note to it. And I really want to point that out because you have legislators that are filling their own pockets at the same time while they're down there passing bills and they're acting like, well, this is good for you. Well, no, it's really good for you because you're going to be very rich or richer. Maybe you can go buy another plane to fly around the country and buy more places.
But Frazier, you don't understand. These poor lawmakers aren't getting paid to be in Austin. They have to make their money somehow.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't. You notice I don't have handmade clothes and don't live in a gated community, and I don't have. I mean, I'm joking about that, but I don't. And there's a lot of money in this political game. I'm not one of them. Never was in it for the money. I would never have been in it if I was a police officer for how many years. And you think there was money in that? There's a calling and there's service and duty. And so those are the things that are supposed to be driving you for this position. And that's why I'm doing it. And I feel that when the folks, like when you said, how do they got to get past what happened last and what happened? Well, we've got to do more things like this. We've got to be more open. We've got to make sure that folks get to see who the candidate is and what they had and what they should have. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do in this campaign. And hopefully we'll get some debates down and folks can actually see, wow, that's a difference.
What's primary day? Is March 6th, March 8th? What is it?
3rd.
March 3rd. Okay. Yeah, Charlie's birthday. Happy birthday, Charlie. Let's have an election.
That's right.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm thinking what, January? Like mid to late January, we need to have a debate?
Yes. Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanksgiving Day. We can do the turkey bowl.
Well, I bet we can find a way to have some in-kind collaboration. Maybe it's at the Sheridan, maybe it's somewhere else. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we need a bigger venue.
We need a bigger venue than we had last time because I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to be very interested in this.
Yes.
We'll get our friends at the GOP of Collin County involved and see who wants to jump in and help organize this thing. Because
more the merrier.
We did it twice back in the spring for municipal stuff, once for the mayor, once for city council. And frankly, we've learned a lot about how to host a debate. So
I love the direction our politics is going on being more informed voter. I thought we saw that in this last mayor election, and I thought there's some things that got nasty, but it didn't get to that boiling point, right? You didn't see things thrown at either one of them. Well, it's hard to throw anything at Scott, right? He's a good guy. So you're not, and Bill's a great guy, right? They're both great guys. But you had a clear-cut choice of one group pushing a candidate that didn't seem like he really wanted it, and then you had a clear-cut candidate that was built for the position. Yeah, and so. And that's where that was at.
Had I not had so much FaceTime early on with Bill, I don't know how I would have felt because we go to Scott's church. We're at Cottonwood Creek, and my in-laws are close friends with the Sanfords. They're in a church, life group with them and whatnot.
Scott Shelley are great people.
Scott is just a wonderful human being, and that was honestly it was hard for me. It was like I really like both of these guys. I just like this one's politics and like positions on issues better than this one, so I'm going to vote for him. But I could just as easily vote for him. Like they're both good guys. Yeah. The other ones, and full transparency, I don't know if you paid any attention to it or not. Tammy Warner and I got totally cross during that campaign. I said some things in ways that should not have been said. My tone was not great. All that to say, like to her credit, Tammy and I, had a full conversation after a conversation on this podcast with Rita Townsend. Yeah. And we made up and was like, hey, politics brings out the worst in people. It does. And then she said, James, I'll tell you, I am so glad to not be in elected office right now. I'm spending so much quality time with my grandbabies. That's good. I'm getting to do what I want. All's well that ends well. To just say, to her credit, I think we both learned a lot from that because Dr. Feltus, Tammy, and the other folks, that was the only race that really seemed like it went toxic. The other races, for most part, they stayed pretty far above board. Yeah. And I hope that there'll be some cooler heads prevailing with this race. I really hope this doesn't get into a giant mudslinging thing. Yeah. Because as someone who didn't have a direct, dog in the fight last time, when you ran against Mr. Chabot, that was really unpleasant. Oh, yeah. Just as a private citizen, seeing how that played out from both sides was like, this whole thing just makes me feel icky.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I hope the level of discourse this time around is a lot better.
Yeah, and I do too, and we plan on staying on that level. And and you're 100% right. When you watch all those races and there's certain incidents that happen, the city did a great job on picking candidates, right? Like I should say the city, the citizens picked a great job on picking great candidate or getting great candidates across the finish line. I think you have a great city council. I think you have a great mayor. And they're going in the right direction. And it's tough, right? It's tough because everyone's going to have friends, and you're going to have.
That's right.
You're going to be pulling for this one and pulling for that one, but at the end of the day, you want that best person in there that's actually going to do the job. And that's it's something to say when it's funny how that all works itself out. It says so it's in God's hands. It's also it's in the public's hands, and it's in your hands, and it's in everybody's hands. But it truly is a calling to get there. And it's great that when you see the one you really wanted in there get there and do a great job for you. And so I know exactly where you're. I'm going to stay away from the Tammy Warren issue because her husband has attacked my wife 3 times, and I really I don't have a lot of great things to say about that man. And that'd be another good cage match. So,
well, unless he's running for your position, there's no reason really to bring him up, right?
Yeah. The last thing I'll say here, and Fred, we can end with whatever is on your mind. I'm kind of taking over the questions.
No, it's all right.
Episode.
It's all good. I've had my interjections. It's all good.
No, when you're having a political conversation, Fred is a lot less specifically interested than I am.
I try to stay very neutral and not pick sides.
Yes.
Not pick sides.
We get a lot of customers.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Political customers too.
But not even that though.
I'm joking on that.
I take it from the stance that, everybody has something to offer, and I'm not going to tell anybody how they're going to vote.
Yep.
But I'm going to say, you need to go out and you need to get that information, because when people come to me and they say, well, did you hear about such and such? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And what does that have to do with anything?
It's like when you're a police officer or in any type of law enforcement, everyone thinks you know what's happening with a police car pull over somebody or whatever. Like, why are there 6 cars over there? I'm like, where?
That's right.
But then it goes back to politics, right? And you're like, hey, what do you think of that guy? Who? It's like, because you guys are doing a podcast, you're in the deal, and you're like, well, you need to go talk to them. You need to. And that's what people need to do. And I've always had my cell phone out there, and I answer it constantly. And sometimes they're not great conversations, but for the most part, they're really, really good. And the more you do it, the more you talk, the more folks get to understand you and understand what you're passionate about and why you're doing it. And those stories of, look, I helped fix this, I helped fix that, I done this over here, that we worked on this,
That's right.
All those projects add up to something, and it's a community.
Yep.
And that's what this job's about, and that's what the job of council was about. Because I was at large, and it doesn't really matter if you're a district person on the council. You should just do everything for the city anyway. But I wish we just had all at larges. But it's great to have that where you can just do whatever you want. Or I shouldn't say do whatever you want, but do what you can for this community to make it better. And this one is bigger than that because you've got other cities involved, and they've got all different flavors. Salina's a lot different than us, but they're growing like a weed, and they've got their issues, especially with their roads and water and all the things that they're dealing with. And Anna and Melissa are no different. They're growing like weeds. They're going to have a huge education boom, which they're already having, and they're going to have to figure out how to build schools. And why we're going in a different direction in certain periods where we're not having the same attendance. Yep. And you've got to figure out how you're going to put roads and water in there for them. And then you've got Prosper that's kind of busting at the seams, and you've got Frisco that's kind of done. It's kind of done growing, right? It doesn't have a lot of growth left in it, but they all have different flavors. And then you got Weston, up there in the middle. And then everyone just kind of forgets about Weston. It's a beautiful little town. It was the first town in Collin County. It was supposed to be the big boom town, and it's become Weston. But you got some growth over there, especially that east or west side of 75, where the new homes and all that are going in and blending in. And you got issues in that ETJ of like, who's going to put the fire out? Are you going to have the Weston volunteer fire department come? Well, how long is that going to take? So those sister cities all have to figure out how they're going to get ambulance service and stuff there. You got the Collin County Sheriff's Department running over there, and you got the police department over here running. It's very confusing when you go back at it, but that's all part of this job.
Yep.
Working together, making sure everybody's on the same page, and then what do you need from me? That's the question I should be asking. What do you need from me every time I see them? And they're like, hey, we need this. Let's work on it together.
Mm-hmm. So is there any possibility to go back and re-legislate the annexation thing? Because when you look at emergency service district, the question you just brought up is a perfect example. What about infrastructure? What about building out all these things? Are we just going to have muds and PIDs everywhere and just this patchwork of nonsense all over the place? Maybe a city is better suited to provide services to the population through police, fire, infrastructure, water, sewer, all the things, libraries and parks. Like, you don't see anybody building parks on county roads. Like, no one's building a library. No one's building a sanitation center.
Yeah.
Like, that's what cities do.
Yeah, that's what cities do. And that's the one thing that's very confusing in those ETJ areas where you're just like, you're in betweens, right? You got to look at, you've got other cities that like, screw it. We're as like this incorporation, so we'll just become McKinney. Well, they have to look at that because they want the city services and they want to make sure they get the best, but they don't want to pay the taxes. Right? Because they're like, well, I don't want their taxes.
But they want McKinney Fire Department to show up at their house when it's on fire.
And they want the trash and the sewer and the water and everything else. And so it's a tough place, but you've got to make sure that you're working with all those together at the same time and saying, what can I do for you? What do you need help with? And that's working with the county commissioners, making sure that they know, hey, we're on the same page here, or we off the rereservation.
Yeah.
And so that has to happen. And that's what I'm very good at. And I know that every single one of them have my number and they're like, hey, can you tell me how this is working? And I'm like, yep. And they still do it now. I mean, I take more phone calls from folks that are like, how did this get here? And I'll tell them and like, how are we going to fix it? And I'm like, well, this is what we should be doing. And I'll tell you who's working on it right now. Or I'll tell you another place in the state that has the same problem and how they've been solving their problems. And that's one thing when you collaborate with people, you figure out, okay, well, they've had this in Harris County, or they've had this over down here in Bexar County, or they've had this in Travis County. I know exactly what they've been working on, and that's what the great part about this job is. It's statewide. You're working with everybody from everywhere, and you're like, how did y'all fix that? And so, okay, we can do that there. So,
anything you want to finish with, Fred?
Two things. One, short answer: people who don't know McKinney, what is a must do, must see, must go thing in McKinney in your mind? No wrong answer.
Downtown by far. That it sold us. We came down when we came down here during Christmas time. We fell in love with the city, and at that time, the downtown was not even near what it is to this day. And I'm going to tell you, it's still every time I drive down there, I feel like a kid. Mm-hmm. And it's like it's kind of a really that atmosphere and everything it brings with it. You have to go to our downtown. Mm-hmm. That's the must thing for McKinney. And I think the other thing is to go to our parks. I think we've done a very good job with our parks, and you're going to see Town Lake getting moved up and all that revitalized, and that's going to be a big centerpiece for our city because for years when I'd go up 75 to go to Texoma, you look over to the right and see that lake, and you're like, God, it looks so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then now it's time for it to get a facelift.
I tell you, you talk about we need water in all these places. Mm-hmm. Every time it rains, get the water from Town Lake because there's a ton of water down there.
There's a ton.
Is there going to be some additional bordering on Town Lake? Like there's got to be.
For years I've said, why are we not building holding centers for water across the state? Because the watershed is only 40 foot deep in most of our lakes that we have. That's where it's at. Bodark is a prime example. How fast did it fill up? Almost 2 years ahead of time. And so that's going to be another water system for us. But why are we not building more of those? Why are we not putting more investment into that area? Because we do have runoff, especially the Trinity when it goes. Where is it going? Mm-hmm. It's going right to the Gulf. It goes right to Houston and goes right out there and just pushes everything with it. We're not capturing any of it. We're just letting it go. And that's one thing we've got to figure out in the state is capture that water. We've got a lot of it when it comes, like yesterday, what record day of most rain on that
billions of gallons of water falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
Gone.
Oh. And so, great point.
All right.
What else with the other one?
Second thing is, what is one thing that we need to know about you? This is not just
something
us,
we haven't covered
that's
at
right.
all.
What's something we need to know? And then you can wrap it up with why people need to vote for you.
Oh, well, I think the one thing that folks need to know about me is what drives the with the everyday, right? That the thing that why, like why, that drive is something I've had for a very long time. Had it in high school, started programs there that are still going to this day. Our Fellowship Christian Athletes, that program I started, and that's going today. The fraternity that I was in college, you never not on your fraternity, Phi Gamma Delta, started it, left it. It's thriving today. And those things that you start and you build along the way, and you leave that mark, those legacy marks, and you don't even do it for that, right? You're not doing it for that. You're just trying to build a better tomorrow, and you're building a future for somebody else. And I left when the department, the systems that we put in there, the financing and everything else, it's in an unbelievable place. The foundations and assist the officers in an unbelievable place, and you leave those marks along the way, and this city is a footprint of me and the other cities in the county and the places that we've done things. Those are your footprints, and you want to leave them there. And I want to make sure that folks understand that's who I am, and that's what they need to know about me. They're going to have a friend, and they're going to have a fighter, and that's the person you want in that back alley, and that's also the person you want to have when you need compassion that's happening to your family, and you need to fix something. I'll give you an example of Uvalde, right? It was a horrible time in our state, and I met with those families. You know how many other people met with them? Hardly any Republicans. And I was told, be careful, be careful. I'm like, what? I need to understand how this is and what we're doing with our schools. And so when we wrote that, the school safety bill, that was a passion I had many years before to make sure they had armed officers in our schools, because I know that was the most vulnerable place for our children to go, because that is a soft target and anybody can get in them. And now we've hardened it, and we're taking steps and steps and steps. I'll give you an example, like Rusty May that works here, and that he's over the school resource officers and everything from MISD. He's not only built a fusion center and put things in place that nobody has across the state. That's a vision, right? And then you have people like me that are like, let's get you more money. Let's make sure that the state is stepping in to help out with these things, because we need all of these to look like that. So I know that was a long answer, and I don't know if that's a really good one, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of what it is.
No, here's the thing. It is what it is. There are no right or wrong answers.
It is a podcast.
It's varying degrees of good answers.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. It is a podcast.
We are going to ask one final question. And I'm going to take this one because I haven't done this in a while.
Go for it.
Who would win in a fight between a giant polar bear? I'm talking like a 12-foot tall polar bear and a great white shark. The fight occurs in a body of water of infinite size. There's no edges, no shoreline, no diving board, no cannonball off the high dive, right. But it is 6 feet deep. So the bear can stand up easily, but the shark is in its natural habitat. Who wins in that fight, bear or shark?
Polar bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
How so?
Because you ever seen a polar bear swim?
Yeah.
Yeah, dive.
No. Yeah.
I just think that he's more agile and move around more. And so I'm just guessing.
There really is no wrong answer.
Okay.
No, Fred is team shark. I'm team polar bear, in case you were wondering.
Yeah, we've had a little streak of
I did not know
folks.
This. Oh my gosh.
But it's always a fun question. But you hit that pretty quickly, though.
It comes back to there's 5 weapons on a polar bear. There's a mouth and 4 claws. There's only one weapon on a shark.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
No, and here's the last thing I'll say, and I know that you would agree in all sincerity, and I'll just look right here at the camera when I say this, because Carissa, I'm sure you and your people are watching this and dissecting every bit of this episode to try to figure out how to beat this guy in the next election. Fred and I will promise you as best a conversation as we can give, as unbiased as we can possibly be, because the fact is, I've known Frazier for several years, been around him in McKinney stuff. We have a certain level of familiarity that I don't have with you, that Fred doesn't have with you. But when you sit in that chair, you get a fair shake and you get the same opportunity to put your message out there in front of our audience as Frazier has had. So that's probably the last thing I can say. We will do the very best we can to help inform the voters, and whatever they choose to do is what they choose to do.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of the podcast. Yeah.
Awesome. You good there?
That's good. Wrap it up.
He is Frederick Frazier. He is running for District 61 for the Texas House of Representatives. And this has been another episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature. Take care, y'all.